Speaker. I rise to support this motion. It is fitting that our nation's parliament, the one place in which all of Australia is represented, sends a message of condolence to for the terrible loss of life, wildlife and property that we have collectively experienced. Today we pay our respects and grief for all the lives lost, but also for the lives that will be lost as a result of these unusually horrific bushfires. Such brutal fires can impact people in so many different ways. It impacts us physically, emotionally, directly and indirectly. Even just the presence of such a brutal fire season can impact those not directly experience it. However, words cannot express the grief, loss and sheer terror that the people who have been through the front of these fires has experienced. And as also many residents of my electorate of McEwen know all too well, this is not something that leaves our consciousness quickly. Country people are pretty much used to having such dangers, but the unprecedented blazes we have experienced during this crisis and over the past decade go beyond what was considered normal in the Australian summer. The consequences of our changing climate are becoming more obvious and more severe. Bushfires are not a faraway problem and infrequent test for regional Australia. They are increasingly starting earlier and more intense than ever before. We know this from the warning signs, from the voices of the fire experts who predicted such brutal blazes earlier this year, voices that went unheard in the corridors of those who could make a tangible difference. Evidently, those predictions were realised. These fires were bigger. They came earlier and they were more intense than the government was prepared for. The challenge now is for government. If you say you accept man-made climate change, then it's incumbent on you to educate those inside your tent who don't accept it. Today we recognise and show our gratitude to those who live by the mantra, standing shoulder to shoulder. These are the courageous people from all walks of life, paid and unpaid, who were prepared to stop what they were doing, forego their plans, leave the comforts of home and go out there and get in and fight for communities. That courage is being shown as the fires rage because we all know too well that the dangers are not yet over. I mean, we can smell it in the air outside this house today. Even as we stand here paying our condolences, communities across the ACT are preparing for the worst as they hope for relief. There is no greater example of courage than the fact that so many were prepared to risk their lives to save the lives of others. Many people who were fighting fires know that all was lost for some of them, but they went back out there to help their mates, to help their neighbours and to help the people they did not even know, because that is the character and the commitment of our paid and unpaid volunteer brigades. This is the Australian spirit. It reminds us leadership is being there when it matters. We in McEwen and our surrounding electorates know all too well the challenges for the road to recovery. Black Saturday impacted us more than anywhere else in the nation. The brunt of this disaster was borne by our communities, and we carry the physical and mental scars of that day with us. But we also carry a great understanding of what the road to recovery is like. Recovery is an individual process that people deal with. It's best done at a pace that suits individuals, and the government has a massive challenge for the months and the years ahead. My advice to the government is to listen. Listen to those with the expert knowledge, the first-hand experience in recovery for disaster. There is no silver bullet to remedy this. There's no set play that can fix it. But there are lessons to be learnt which will make the road to recovery easier. So listen. Understand that people need to be the central focus of recovery plans. Letting individual cases guide us through the myriad of issues we'll face going forward is so important. At a time when we feel all is lost, we must keep them close, particularly in our small communities which have been hit hard. Social cohesion at a time of crisis is important, especially for the many small businesses in towns who need the local foot traffic there to keep them afloat. Keeping locals in their community will always aid the healing process. But what will also help is reducing unnecessary bureaucracy. Bureaucracy which will reduce the time people have had to deal with the aftermath. Departments at all levels of government need to put people first. They can do this by taking unnecessary red tape out of the process and making services simple and efficient to use. Understanding and helping with the process, rebuilding homes and community infrastructure will be harder and more expensive as communities face higher bushfire attack levels and building standards to make homes and buildings more safer and resilient. Coordination is also a key. Ensure that monies go to people directly and when they need it. Having an efficient system means more people will get help quicker and limit the number of people who will fall through the cracks. And importantly, take the egos out of government. Recovery isn't a time for photo opportunities and false empathy. People are hurting and they need a hand up, a shoulder to lean on and an ear to hear their voice. Don't turn your back on them, don't walk away. As I said, we have the experience and the knowledge in our communities to help along the way. We can learn from the people with the experiences. People such as Tony Thompson OAM, Anne Leadbeater, Kath Stewart, Helen Kenny, for example. People that have walked this path and know how better than you what is in the road ahead. We have people such as our Lions and Rotary Clubs, the BU Childcare in Kilmore, who made bat wraps to send up to the Blue Mountains. And I've seen firsthand the work they do. Of course, Blaze Aid. Blaze Aid is now a national iconic institution that Kevin and Rhonda Butler of Kilmore found. They have gone to great lengths in this space since the Black Saturday bushfires, helping farmers get fences back on their feet to get them going quicker. Of course, there's Rangers Rescue, who spent the weeks sowing and creating assistance and support for native animals, and they did a fundraiser which raised about $5,000. And that was done off little $20 up to $20 items. Homemade tote bags to bespoke fabric coasters, whatever it was they put in to help communities. Also want to acknowledge people like Khalsa Aid. Khalsa Aid, as the member for Gippsland pointed out, went out there into communities and supported communities by cooking food, going out there helping people in Buchan and East Buchan, those sort of places. Even in New South Wales, they went up there. And of course, the Islamic outreach. What this shows is that people right across this nation from all walks of life have been out there and supporting our communities. For over 10 months after the Black Saturday fires, as I said, Blaze Aid were out there, and even today, right across this nation, are out there helping our farmers. Transition Village in Wallen, which is a homeless person's shelter, that's opening their doors and helping raise funds. And of course, a lady who I have just the utmost respect for, Jane Hayward OAM. Jane was the principal at Strathewen Primary School, one of the biggest towns hit with the loss of life per capita in Black Saturday. Jane travels the country, going into communities, looking after schools and helping them get back on track. She's been working with Rob Gordon, the psychiatrist, and Kate Liddell, the ex-firefoxes, to help people in the aftermath of fires. We owe it to people in these communities who have lost their homes and have lost their loved ones every ounce of energy and help that the Commonwealth Government is capable of giving. We owe that those communities who need us, we will be there for them as they forge ahead in the new normal.